Someone called my watch addiction hotline. It was a guy calling from a posh hotel in Beverly Hills, answering an ad on Craigslist. This individual had gone to the hotel suite to buy a Rolex, only to find that the watch seller was a dead fat man lying on the hotel bed, his enormous body covered with several dozen Swiss luxury watches worth over $1 million. We were all excited. This would be our most famous episode, a ratings bonanza, our most watched episode ever. I got to the suite in the Beverly Hills Hilton, where I was met by Ulysses Manafred, a man in his early 60s, donning khaki slacks and a navy sport coat in the hallway. The hotel door was cracked open. Inside, the watch seller, a morbidly obese man, wearing gray-striped silk pajamas, was lying on the bed, presumably dead. Music played from a Bluetooth speaker on the mahogany bedside table. It was the Commodore's "Just to Be Close to You," set on automatic repeat. I would later learn that the obese watch seller, a Mr. Logan T. Oliphant, was selling the Rolex Submariner that was currently on Ulysses' wrist. During the negotiation, Mr. Oliphant said he was too heartbroken to live anymore. According to Ulysses' account, Mr. Oliphant was reclined on the bed, which was covered with over 100 shiny Swiss luxury watches. Upon hearing this part of the story, I leaned my body into the hotel room and took a peek at the bed, which was indeed covered with hundreds of shiny watches of top-tier brands such as Rolex, Omega, and Panerai. Some of them were stacked on top of the inert watch salesman, whose girth took up most of the king-size bed. Rather than looking like desirable treasure, the watches had the hellish quality of a rattlesnake den. The oily reptiles coiled inextricably around each other. "Did the watch seller die?" I asked Ulysses as we stood under the hotel room's archway. Ulysses, who had a silver lion's mane of hair and square spectacles, nodded. He was wearing the Rolex Submariner. He stared at the watch for a moment, then said, "What the hell am I doing? I can't keep this. It would be wrong under the circumstances." "What happened?" I asked him. "Well, Mr. Oliphant told me he was heartbroken after his wife left him. She accused him of being in love with his watches more than with her. He said after she left him, he'd sit in his basement all day, making YouTube watch videos, trying on one of his several hundred watches, all worth at least $2,000 apiece. He had become so overcome by self-loathing that all he wanted to do was die. But first, he would sell off his watches and give the funds to his wife and children. He disappeared into the Beverly Hilton for the last 2 weeks, where he consumed room service meals, ribeye steak, bacon cheeseburgers, banana splits, strawberry milkshakes, whiskey, and NyQuil. As he told me his story, he explained that during his binge, he had this compulsion to listen to the Commodore's "Just to Be Close to You" over and over. He explained that the song is about a man who has no purpose in life, so he puts all his energy in material things. But everything changes when he falls in love with a very special woman. That was supposed to be my happy love story, Mr. Oliphant told me. And it was my story at one time, a long, long time ago. But I ruined the story because of my watch addiction. My life was good, but I made it bad, and now it's too late. And just like that, the watch seller closed his eyes, gave out a large sigh as if giving up the ghost, and died. Honestly, I think grief and regret killed the man. "We need to call the police," I said. "And yes, under the circumstances, you cannot keep this Rolex. Did you already pay him?" "Yes, the money is on the bed. $300 in cash. This Rolex is worth close to $10,000. I know. I was essentially stealing from a man in grief. I cannot with good conscience keep it." "Put the Rolex back in the room," I said. "I think I'm going to puke," Ulysses said, "to think that a part of me was going to actually keep the Submariner." "The addict inside you," I said. "It has no moral bearings. It's just a shark in constant state of feeding." Ulysses nodded, then said, I sold all my watches in preparation for this Rolex. I had just retired from aerospace. My wife had recently passed away from cancer. My children had graduated college and had good jobs, and I felt I deserved a Rolex. My watch buddies told me all things point to Rolex, but not this time, not under these circumstances. You'll want to put that Rolex back in the room before the police come, I said. They're going to question you, but I'm sure everything will be fine. I have no doubt in my mind that a man died of grief and heartache, and you'll be cleared. It was a warning, Ulysses said, a warning of what could happen to me. I nodded, then said, all addicts have a moment like this. We can see our addiction in its fullness, and it feels like we're in a cave that just collapsed on top of us. I can see you're short of breath. Yes, said Ulysses, keeled over, hyperventilating. Relax and breathe naturally, I said. Take in this moment, embrace it, and build the rest of your life on this traumatic experience. The police approached. I looked at them and pointed to the open hotel door. I took a last look at the bed. The shiny watches looked alive, sinister, tightly coiled serpents, guardians of Hades. I then looked at Ulysses, then said, this is why I became the Watch Whisperer. I'm on a mission to help fellow watch addicts escape their personal hell. Ulysses looked at the 100 or so watches glimmering on the bed. Then he fainted. As he would later explain to me, seeing the hell he nearly failed to escape was just too much for him. He passed out and had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks, where he was too delirious to eat without assistance, and he had to be sustained by intravenous feeding tubes, then vanilla protein shakes and green jello. Since the incident, Ulysses has not bought a watch. He only wears a $20 plastic Casio he found in his drawer. The rest of his watches he put in a pillowcase with a heavy brick, which he then tossed into the Pacific Ocean. He feared giving them away might spark an addiction in someone else, and he did not want to bear that on his conscience. He says he approaches life differently now, with the gratitude of a man who knows he's escaped a spiritual death from which there would be no return.